This is an opportunity to say yes, no revenge, no acts of vengeance.
Charlie Kirk would not want revenge.
You want revenge at the voter
That's
box.
that's where to go.
But unfortunately, we don't have so many ballot
rigged.
boxes because they have mail-in voting, which is totally rigged. You know, there are a lot of problems. I like ballot boxes where they do mail-in
And
voting.
now he's just gone. He's just completely fucking segued, and now we're talking about voter fraud again. He's fucking mental. Trump endangered more Republicans, let alone Democrats. He endangered more Republicans with his rhetoric in the month building up to January 6th than any Democrat has in the last 10, 20 years. Because any time any Republican, whether they were pro-Trump or not, if they just defied him on one or two things, or just mainly one, the slate of electors, there would be Republicans at their doors with guns calling them fucking pedophiles and traitors. Not cooperating with investigators from Fox. 1.7 billion views. Let's go.
If you're not familiar with how all of this did play out, as far as the timeline, we know that Charlie Kirk was speaking. Those are some of the photos there at Utah Valley University. About 3,000 people in attendance as the gunshot was fired. He was rushed over to a hospital afterward, where sadly, we later heard from President Trump that Kirk did pass away.
Yeah.
I want to discuss the case in general and what happens next. So let's bring in a friend of the show here. We do have Jillian Snyder, an adjunct lecturer at John Jay College of Criminal Justice and resident senior fellow at the R Street Institute. She is also a retired New York City police officer. Thank you so much, Jillian, for taking the time to join us here.
Good morning, Josh. Thanks for having me.
Good morning. Well, first off, I do want to ask you, because we know that within about 48 hours, we saw this arrest made, the suspect taken into custody after a reward was offered of $100,000. And also you had the videos and photos that were circulated. So based on your experience here, how common is it to see an arrest made in a case of this magnitude here within 48 hours?
As you just said, he was taken into custody within 33 hours, and that's extremely fast by traditional investigatory norms, but it does often happen in high-profile cases, and it's because you have so much interagency cooperation. In this case,
I mean, his dad literally did fucking grass him up, didn't he? He got grassed up by his family.
Obviously, we had so much media exposure, and then once the release of the surveillance footage and videos went live, you have millions of people across the country looking into this, and ultimately a family member, the father is what we're hearing, recognized the suspect, confronted the suspect, and he was ultimately taken into custody. But again, we all saw the show the first 48 hours. We know that those 2 days.
Remember, the FBI was like, we don't know where he is. We have no idea. We don't even know if he's still in. They didn't know if he was still in the state. They thought he might have crossed state lines. Bro, that's crazy.
Are the most impactful for talking to witnesses, getting surveillance, getting victim statements, and collecting forensic evidence.
You mentioned the father. That's, of course, what we did learn about how the arrest itself happened and how he turned himself in. But how common would you say it is for people close to the suspect, especially a family member like a father, to be the ones who are alerting police there after seeing surveillance photos, videos, and saying, that right there is my son?
Only a good concern.
Honestly, it's one of the more common ways that big cases are cracked, and it did play out in this investigation. So the suspect's father recognized him, as we know, and a family friend reportedly helped get that information to a police. And again, we're hearing that the father urged the suspect to turn himself in. So normally people think it's the anonymous tipster's line, but in reality, it is often people close to the suspect, whether it be a family or a friend or an acquaintance, because they do have that inside information. They would more easily recognize that suspect once the video surveillance or surveillance photos are released online. So it does happen more commonly than most think.
When you're talking about the FBI Director Kash Patel and his comments yesterday, he said 11,000 tips and leads did come in over that 33-hour period there. How does that compare to maybe another case? 11,000 seems like a lot of tips from the public. And also, how do law enforcement officers, investigators there go about combing through those at a quick rate and determining, is this legitimate or is this a false lead?
11,000 tips is a great amount, but one of the contributing factors to that was the sizable reward. You don't often see $100,000 reward offered that quickly in an investigation. You'll actually see the reward amount increase the longer the investigation is active, more as like an incentive for people to pay attention. So, but when you have thousands of tips, 11,000 in this case, law enforcement and detectives have to rely on a triage system to sort them out. So they prioritize tips.
No super chats yet. That's rough, buddy. Isn't it just? It is quite rough, isn't it? What the fuck's going on? What's wrong with this community? Absolutely disgusting. It's like a halfway through the month thing. Everyone spent all their fucking DoorDash money because they're too busy watching the stream to make their own food.
That they find to be credible, but can be corroborated with evidence that they currently have. So in this case, they did recover a rifle very early on in the investigation with the etchings and markings on them. They did have footprints that they were able to cast into and, you know, make comparisons. And they did have some video footage. So they're going to look at tips that kind of match or mirror those and prioritize those. They will still log every other tip and they will still follow up inevitably on every possible lead, but they need to do it based on a triage system of what seems the most practical and probable.
I want to ask about something you just mentioned here, and those are the markings and the words that were written on the bullets themselves. Does that detail have any investigative significance? What, if anything, can be understood from those messages?
Hey, Dial Mule, thanks for $5. Really appreciate that. Greasing the wheels there. Nice one.
That are written there.
So these messages were interesting because typically you'll see a suspect.
Wait, who's this person? Do we have contention? Do we have glorious contention? Hello, Full Metal Harry.
I'm sorry if I'm like intruding at all. It's just that I'm pointing out that super chats aren't working at the moment for me. It's just saying.
Oh, you're very quiet as well.
Yeah, well, that's it. It says unable to send message. It doesn't. If it's like a filter, it usually says edit message and try again. But it's just saying unable to send message. And I looked up a Reddit thread, which says that it happens on occasion. It might be an issue with YouTube servers. That's all I have to say.
Oh.
So sorry for interrupting, but I just thought I might point that out. Okay, bye.
Interesting. Bye bye. Right in and out. What a champ.
Have a common theme. We did see some commonality in some of the etchings, the Bella Ciao and the catch it fascist or whatever I'm paraphrasing here. But then he did have other ones that said, like, if you read this, you're gay, LMAO.
Hey.
That's, again, when we're looking at a criminal mastermind, we're looking for someone with some consistency in their messaging. So this does implicate that he is immature. He was trying to make a point, but it was immature. But because a lot of what he wrote had political undertones, had ideological meaning behind it, they will use that as their foundation and their cornerstone. Of course, the victim in this case, the political arena in this case, all allude to political violence. But we need to look at what the suspect left behind. And he left behind these etchings, which are very impactful. But that's just going to be phase one. Because political ideation, yes, could be a motivational factor, but in most cases of assassination or would-be assassination, notoriety and the need and feeling of needing to see visibility. You
can already tell this picture is going to be a problem, right? Because he looks like maybe kind of good looking in these pictures. I don't know. That's going to cause problems.
Notoriety and the need and feeling of needing to see visibility. Those are really the motivating factors, with the political undertones being secondary.
What you're looking at is some of the video that was captured as the gunshot was fired. You can see about 3,000 people there at the event, according to event organizers, and they are running because, again, they just witnessed something horrific.
Yes, he's no Luigi, though. That's true. Just nice Mormon boy. Soljo, thanks for $5. Dark Money Test Run. True. LeMayo, that's the 2 Canadian. Hello, tech support. Is this the 1-800 number? Wow, good one.
They heard a gunshot. They don't know if more gunshots are going to be fired. What role did that large crowd right there at the event likely play in allowing the suspect to escape afterward? Because, again, we know, according to investigators, that he was actually on a rooftop at the time. He was not in the crowd itself.
So as you said earlier, and as reports have said, there was approximately 3,000 people at this event. That's going to create a lot of confusion. As you're seeing, these attendees are just running in all types of directions. It doesn't seem like there was any evacuation protocol put into place. But honestly, even if you have the best evacuation protocol, when something like this happens, people immediately just retreat to safety. So that in itself makes it super hard for law enforcement to immediately secure a scene. Additionally, as you also just said, the suspect was perched on a roof about 200 yards and was able to slip into that chaos after the fact. But on the better hand and the more positive note, because you have this many people and this is a younger...
Slip into that chaos. I thought he jumped off the roof at the back because it just looked like he jumped off the roof and was just kind of walking away nonchalant almost in a quiet part of the town.
Crowd. They are all holding their cell phones. That's a huge resource for investigators. So dozens of people have already come forward with video tips and with video footage and have been able to provide law enforcement, which was enabling them to piece together minute by minute when this suspect got off the roof and ultimately fled.
One thing that's interesting.
What's your thoughts on disavowing the violence versus not doing it till the right does? No, I think people can disavow the violent, like they can disavow the killing, obviously. That's fine. When it comes to disavowing the violence, I mean, Democrats can do it to the left. They can tell them to, because I think they allow far leftists to get too close to the party sometimes, and it's really annoying because they drag everyone down. But no, the focus should be on getting Trump to disavow his own side, because that's like the huge monstrous fucking gaping black hole gap that's missing in all this, right? Is Trump not only holding back with disavowing his own side, but also just like he encourages them. He doesn't want to disavow them. He likes what they do.
A note from yesterday. Investigators did reveal here that the suspect, while he is in this jail that you see right there on your screen, he's been questioned by investigators. They have said that he is not cooperating. He is staying quiet, not answering any of their questions about a motive or anything else. Again, that information obviously preliminary coming in from investigators. But what does that say to you? Is that fairly standard that a suspect is not going to talk and share any details about any of this?
So it varies based on the way in which the suspect was captured. In this case, his family brought him in. They offered him into law enforcement. When you have someone who's on the lam, on the run, and ultimately apprehended by law enforcement's diligence, they're often going to, because they're upset that they got caught, they're going to open their mouths prematurely. In this case, the parent brought him in, and I would speculate that he was told not to cooperate, to ask for legal counsel in a situation like this. But we have so much other corroborating evidence, and investigators will, unfortunately, now, if the suspect is not speaking, they'll have to rely solely on that forensic digital footprint, the found rifle, the found etch markings, any footprints, anyone that's willing to come forward with a statement. So it will take a little longer because we don't have a direct confession, but I'm sure with what the what the suspect's family and what some victims on scene have said, we're going to be able to piece this together much quicker.
We did not get a news conference last night. We know that there have been several throughout the day as they were still looking for him. But yesterday they held a very...
Wait, where is the transcript? There's a bit when he was talking to Fox and Friends when he was asked about vengeance or whatever, or retribution. What was the word that he used? But he mentioned something about voter fraud or mail-in ballots, but I can't find it. Why? They didn't delete it, did they? They asked him something about what about people who want vengeance or retribution? He said, well, where else are they going to get it? The ballot box? Like, wait, where is that? Was it vengeance? I can't see vengeance here though. Revenge? No? Why is it not there? At the ballot box? No. Hang on.
Hello, everyone. This is...
Look for mail-in ballots. Or mailing? Maybe the word mailing? No, even mail is in there. What about male? Like the gender? It's in the 1 hour one. Oh, he spoke to them for an hour.
Judge's epic
right.
performance coming out.
Maybe it's here. Wait, that means they cut it from the shortened segment. Okay. Yeah, here. What the fuck was this, dude?
Details on what you told us, and that is we got the guy. You guys got the guy, and he's in custody and he's alive, and he was turned in by friends and families confirmed it. So is the message to the right, the people that are going to go, I want revenge, not to have revenge? Charlie Kirk would not want revenge.
You want revenge at the voter
That's where to go.
But unfortunately, we don't have so many ballot boxes because they have mail-in voting, which is totally rigged.
What's he doing?
Problems. I like ballot boxes where they do mail-in voting all over the place.
This is an opportunity to say yes, no revenge, no acts of vengeance. The Godfather.
Have revenge. Charlie Kirk would not want revenge.
You want revenge at the voter
That's where to
Yeah,
go.
But
yeah,
unfortunately,
okay,
we don't have
but
so many
it's
ballot
rigged.
boxes because they have mail-in voting, which is totally rigged. There are a lot of problems. I like ballot boxes where they do mail-in
And
voting.
now he's just gone. He's just completely fucking segued, and now we're talking about voter fraud again. He's fucking mental.
All over the place, which is rigged. Anytime Jimmy Carter, they had a commission. He said, anytime you have mail-in voting, it's a crooked election, okay? And they got to stop. But I can't really say at the ballot box because in some cases, like California, doesn't have ballot boxes.
Then
they send out 38 million ballots. Nobody knows where the hell they're going. Then they come back. Democrats get more than...
It's not like he's lost sight of the question either. He's not just on a stream of consciousness. He said, oh yeah, well, we can't get it at the ballot box. So...
Republicans.
Right.
It's so unfair, the system. And we're going to fix this system.
What are you going to do about President Putin? Because we just...
That's mental. Like, revenge is a strong word. It's not like it went past him. He just deflected intentionally because he doesn't want to stop. Yeah. He's not that dumb. He's not that stupid that he just got on a fucking unintentional tangent on fucking voter fraud. That was a very intentional dodge. It's fucking insane.
Very detailed news conference afterward. What question or questions do you still want to see answered? Of course, with your background, I'm sure you're inquisitive and you just want to know certain things. So what question or questions do you still have?
Well, I want to say, firstly, I do commend them on providing such a detailed press conference.
Jimmy Carter never said that. I'm so surprised.
You don't typically see that. They'll give you breadcrumbs, but they're not going to come forth with all the information that they did yesterday. So I think that was a true testament to the willingness to be transparent with the public. So I'm just very proud of law enforcement and Governor Cox for coming forward and giving us an almost 30-minute press conference. But with that being said, we have him in custody. We have so much evidence that's already seemingly showing that he is, in fact, the suspect and alleged shooter. But I want to know how he got on that rooftop. I want to know he wasn't a student at UVU. Did he go there and do counter surveillance? My assumption is...
I don't know if this counts as ban evasion, but I'm pretty sure Honked in Maine is shadow banned. Anyway, have you read George Sorrell's Reflections of Violence? It's a classic in early Bolshevik and fascist thought.
Whoa, thanks for £20. I have no idea. No, I haven't read that. I haven't even heard of it.
Imagine getting handed your script and being around certified ball holders just to still drop the ball on denouncing political violence. Wow.
Well, that's the thing, right? Because even the CNN interviewer would have tried to bring him back to that question, but thankfully he's in the fucking Fox News Trump's fleshlight glaze department that they don't give a fuck. They don't care that he's not answering their question. They're just happy to have him on and have a little friendly chat. I don't know why you'd be shadow banned. Anyway, shadow cucked. True.
Most definitely, because for him to identify that vantage point, and we have to look at this, the rifle that he used, 200 yards is not a far distance for a rifle like that, which also makes me think he's not an expert marksman. A rifle like that is actually capable by a skilled marksman of shooting 400 to 600 yards away. So I want to know all of that. Did anyone in his family know that he was going and doing target practice with rifles? But
yeah, this was a bit odd as well. People like being, oh, he must be such a trained, skilled sniper. He must have been in the military. Like, dude, 200 yards with a hunting. No, it's not. Even I know that somehow.
The most important thing is, how is he able to access that campus, not being a student, and be able to map out and plan out this attack?
All right, Jillian.
Well, we don't know, to be clear, we don't know if he aimed for the neck as well. We just know that he hit the neck. But yeah, if he was actually aiming for the neck, then that would make him not a skilled marksman, because you're not supposed to aim for a small target. You're supposed to go center mass, yeah. Especially when it's there. when it's available to you.
Snyder, as always, thank you so much for taking the time to join us and provide some perspective there. There are still a lot of questions, but as you mentioned, a very detailed news conference, about 30 minutes in length, held by the Utah governor and other officials there. Thank you again for being here. Anything else you want to add about any of this before I let you go?
No, I'm just really grateful that the FBI was able to work with Utah Public Safety and capture the suspect so quickly.
Thank you again for being here. We definitely appreciate it.
Thanks, Josh.
And I do want to take you out to some of this video that is coming in from Fox News. As you can see, a vehicle that is actually being transported from the scene of the home of that suspect. We did get this video just coming in, so I'm taking a look at it for the first time, but it looks like the vehicle is towed away as part of the evidence. This is outside of the home of the accused killer. Again, we don't have a lot of information, but as you can see, the FBI agents are there on scene. They drive up several vehicles. They are combing through that home, looking for any evidence in connection with the case. Again,
I'm sure there are reasons why they could be considered bad debaters, but do you think it's the main reason why they debate college kids? Don't you think it's important? Yeah, why wouldn't you? It's content, and you get better content when you debate college kids, because if you debate equals, some of them do. Michael Knowles, I believe, has debated like conservative or like liberal conservative intellectuals and done fairly well, I think. But yeah, Charlie Kirk is not equipped for that. He's not an intellectual. He's not like a clever person. He's actually sorry, actually kind of a doofus a lot of the time. But again, it's the lowest risk, highest well, not anymore. But it would have been seen as the lowest risk, highest reward. You get loads of content. You get you go against inexperienced people. You get to sell your ideology. You get to make a lot of money out of it. So yeah, there is a reason people do it beyond the fact that it's easy. But the fact that it's easy is a big part of it.
As I mentioned, we are told by investigators that the suspect is not cooperating with law enforcement and not answering their questions. We'll keep you updated here as we do get more details. But that suspect also expected to appear in a Utah courtroom on Tuesday.
Tash, you inspire kids. Sure, yeah, you radicalize, you indoctrinate the youth. Hell yeah. Conservatives done that for a while, though. Ben Shapiro did it, and then although Ben Shapiro is smart enough to have debated like better people since. Milton Friedman used to do it. He sold his economic ideology off of debating college students and talk show hosts. So it's an old thing. It's not new. William Fisher, Christopher Hitchens on Hannity and Combs about Reverend Falwell's death. I don't know what this is.
The controversial televangelist was a polarizing figure, emboldening conservative Christians while alienating many liberals, but there's no question about the impacting legacy Falwell leaves behind. Joining us now is Republican strategist Ralph Reed and author of God Is Not Great, columnist Christopher Hitchens, who made news last night with his harsh critique of the Reverend. Christopher, let me start with you here and talk about...
Is this about fucking respecting the dead? God, fucking Christopher Hitchens. He looks like a total bulldozer approach that he used to do.
The things you've said, which obviously arrogant, we know where you stand on religion, we know where you stand on Reverend Falwell. By being so angry about what his legacy was and is, are you not hurting his family and others who may have no dog in that hunt, but who would just like a few moments to celebrate his life and have some peace?
Well, I don't care whether his family's feelings are hurt or not, but if they are, they can take comfort from the extraordinary piety and stupidity and, generally speaking, uniformity of the coverage of the man's death.
Wow.
It is, after all, was said by the supposed Jesus of Nazareth to his followers that they must expect to be mocked for their beliefs, because their beliefs will appear to many people to be ridiculous, if not worse than that, and that they are to take it for granted that they will be ridiculed. That's true, I think, of the most devout and serious and thoughtful Christian. But for a vulgar fraud and crook like the Reverend Falwell, it's an obligation to say what one thinks about him, or be left off the air and have people like yourselves broadcasting only piety. And that
I'm not broadcasting only piety. I did my radio show, and now we're having you on here to talk about your view, very different than what else the media is saying.
You're having me on and then arguing that maybe it's bad taste to have me on. I don't think that's very legit.
Did you cover the Israel did it angle? Yeah, I'll do it right now. Israel didn't do it. You're a fucking retard. I don't know. Is that it? I'm not calling you that. I'm just answering the angle. All right.
A question, because I think people are wondering.
Yeah, well, I've answered it. I've answered the question.
You have, and I will now
one?
move on to Ralph Reed, now that you've answered that question.
Good.
Ralph, does Christopher Hitchens have a point? It is a free speech issue. He was a polarizing figure. Reverend Falwell was. And there are many people, maybe not all of them feeling as strong as Christopher Hitchens, but who feel that Reverend Falwell was indeed a polarizing figure. He said things that offended many Americans.
Well, you know, look, any time, Alan, that you are an agent of change, the way Dr.
Wait, where's Hannity? I want to see Hannity doing it. Because Hannity is the ultimate fucking soy boy.
I don't believe in the sincerity of his apology.
Let's look at the thoughtlessness and the mean-spiritedness of your very remarks that you've made about Reverend Falwell.
By all means.
You think it's a pity that there isn't a hell for him to go to, you said.
Yes, I do.
On his death, you write, the discovery of the carcass of Reverend Falwell on the floor of his obscure office is, you know, almost zero significance, except for perhaps two categories of people, etc. You also say the evil he did will live after him.
Yes.
I knew Reverend Falwell, Christopher.
Yes, I did.
I know the good work that this man has done.
Tell me about it.
Well, he for
takes a lot to make me cry.
I know you think you're the smartest guy in the room, but you sound like a jackass when.
What did he say? It takes a lot to make me come. There's no way he said that, right? That's just my head being weird.
Well, Christopher, I know the good work that this man has done.
Tell me about it.
Well, he for
takes a lot to make me cry.
I know you think you're the smartest guy in the room, but you sound.
He said cry. Jesus Christ.
Like a jackass when you attack his family like this. But I know what he did for unwed mothers. I know what he did for alcoholics. I know what he did for drug addicts.
Excuse me, sir.
It would have been much funnier if he said come, wouldn't it? It would have been. Oh no, sorry. Stop.
Yeah.
I did not
ban sex. Ban sex.
Attack his family, and no fair-minded view of yours will say that. I'm not going to be conscripted into saying that it's my job when you invite me on to discuss this man, first to say how sorry I am for him and his family. That isn't what I feel. You, no doubt, as a Christian, or whatever you are, require hypocrisy of people. I'm sorry you're asking the wrong person.
I'm not asking for no, but I am asking for human decency, and if you don't think it has an impact on his family, to use even the phrases tonight, that he's vulgar, fraud, and a crook, and then to say that the discovery of his carcass, I think you are incredibly mean, incredibly selfish, and incredibly thoughtless.
Fucking Sean Hannity saying this. What a fucking bitch. Like, why would you...
invited me, sir, to give my opinion of the departed. I give it to you, and you say... Well, might that not upset his family? I said it while he was alive.
Give his opinion
might that not have upset his family too?
You give the opinion about him, and I'm giving the opinion about you. And the thoughtlessness of your remarks here, and I'm really calling for any human decency that you may have in your pseudo-intellectually superior mind of yours.
More of the debate on this.
Pseudo-intellectually superior. He's just upset because Hitchens is English, right? That's where that's coming from.
Coming up in a moment, and later, unbelievable video of a toddler.
And we continue now. Republican strategist Ralph Reed and columnist and author Christopher Hitchens. You know, Christopher, I interviewed you a little bit about your book just a short time ago. And it made me think a lot. Jerry Falwell, because I do know him, he does a lot for people that are in trouble. He gave a lot of scholarships to his school. He helped women that were pregnant and needed help. He'd give them food and a place to live and an education. He did a lot to people that are alcoholics and et cetera, et cetera. You have your hostility towards religion, and that's without saying. You know, I just wonder, you know, when you compare his life, you know, there are a lot of good atheist communists out there like Stalin and Mao and Pol Pot, and, you know, they slaughtered millions. Jerry Falwell slaughtered nobody in his life. He may have misspoke once or twice, but he devoted his life to his religion. Do you have nothing good to say about him at all?
No, I repeat. Jerry Falwell lived on hatred and superstition and bigotry. He preached dislike of people whose lives he knew nothing about. He raised money from credulous fools.
You don't know anything about his life.
Now, excuse me, sir. You can either ask me on and ask my opinion, or you may not. But I don't have to be here if you're going to take that attitude.
Well, you could leave.
You spent the first half by saying I had no right to the opinion you'd asked me on to express. Now you're tiring me out. I repeat that.
No, what I said is your opinion was thoughtless. What you wrote was crude and mean and hateful. That's what I said.
You took up all the time for my answer with your long, rather unlettered question.
Oh, okay.
Jerry Falwell made a career out of sponsoring dislike and superstition, said that people he didn't like were going to hell, said the United States deserved to be attacked by Islamic fascists, said he believed that people would be raptured into heaven, leaving all the rest of us to wallow behind. I think his Death is a deliverance. And if you say that someone who occasionally makes a charitable donation is a good person, then you have to say that...
Do you not make any money from stream if people don't donate? Is YouTube red and adds that shit? No, YouTube's fine. It's just that I make more money if people donate, you know? Like, why would you want to make more? The fuck? Business mindset, guys. Think about what you could be making. No.
Hamas and Hezbollah, who do all this charitable giving
how
and
dare he
charitable
practice
organizing
religion
are the same.
in a country that celebrates it, Ralph Reed?
Sean, you know, look,
and why not a word now from the friend of Jack Abramoff?
Wait, we only have a moment here, Ralph. Here's an important question about. Well, let me get Ralph in here. Here's an important question
That's
about Jerry
all it
Falwell.
needs now. Let's hear from the Abramoff faction.
We only have a moment left. Ralph gets to speak
rip-off artists. You should be ashamed.
Hold on, Christopher. Ralph, the big controversy about Jerry Falwell was he fused religion and politics, and that's what people will be debating, I guess, going forward. And after he said he would not do such a thing, would Jesus have advocated the GOP, and was he right to bring in and marry those two and give that impression? We only have a very short time left, Ralph.
Well, I don't think that's ever what Dr. Falwell said. What he said was that there were certain transcendent values, such as the protection of innocent human life, the sanctity of marriage, the need to defend the state of Israel, his opposition to communism, his opposition to radical
defend the Israeli occupation.
jihadism, and what he believed was that those values should be reflected in public policy. And I think that, you know, when you have a community of Liberty University with its 10,000...
What about nonsense? You're telling me that Jesus Christ would have sanctioned the military occupation of Bethlehem?
Students in residence. You have 22,000 members of his church. You have millions of others of people who looked up to him and admired him. I would really hope that people like Christopher would show the decency and respect to let those people mourn
and
remember his memory without being torn down and attacked.
Tell it to your business partner.
Good try, Christopher.
Tell it to your religious
personal friend of mine,
friends.
and
what's the point of watching this? It's just I don't know. Someone sent it to me. I guess the meme is that it's funny when people don't cave into the concern trolling of right-wingers who would never do it for people who are on the Democrat side who die. I don't know. Watch till the end. Too late. Well, Control-Shift-T? Let's see. Will Rio... Nah, I don't care. Fuck it. What is it? Nah, don't care. Have you watched James O'Brien's monologue on Kirk? No! I was reading on the weekend. I wasn't watching shit. James O'Brien. Is it Brian or Brian? Charlie Kirk. The last line is the most brutal insult in human history. Well, sold. Let's see.
The controversial televangelist was a polarized...
Let those people mourn.
Tell it to Jack
and remember
Abramoff.
his memory without being torn down and attacked.
Tell it to your business partner.
Good try, Christopher.
Tell it to your religious
personal friend of mine, and I'll miss him. When we come back, Toddler gets too close to a dancing performance in Times.
What did he say? Your religious racketeer friends.
Tell
it to your business partner.
Good try, Christopher.
Tell it to your religious
personal friend of mine, and I'll miss him. When we come back, Toddler gets too close to a dancing performance in Times Square.
If you gave Falwell an enema, he'd be buried in a what? One more for the boys. What did he say?
When we come back, Toddler gets too close to a dancing performance in Times
Matchbox. Okay.
Square.
Yeah, all right. Whatever. English people, man. Fucking English people. He says Lonerbox. Ah, clever. I don't get it. Yeah, I don't get it either. I was thinking of pretending to get it so I could look smart, but then I just thought, nah, fuck, it's too old for that kind of behavior.
If we're going to be debating the concerned trolls, it might be helpful to go over Kirk's takes on George Floyd.
Yeah? What did he say about George? Well, it was stuff he said on the day, I guess. I saw Fuentes. I actually got sent his reaction to the George Floyd killing. He was just saying, yeah, that looks really excessive by the cop. Like, he didn't need to kneel on his neck. That's what Fuentes said on day one. I would be curious to see what... But obviously, I think Fuentes moved over into the fentanyl sphere after it became politicized. Interesting. What did Charlie Kirk say, though? It's this debate content.
You said it was based on scripture and you believe that there are moral, objective, universal truths.
Yes, there are.
So
murder is wrong today and murder was wrong 2,000 years ago.
Right, okay, fair. That's not same sex, but fair. I see your point. But
there are moral truths that are transcendent of time, place, and matter.
Okay, but so just to clarify, you believe that this is in the Bible. This is laid out in the Bible, that man shall not sleep with man, and so therefore...
Well, it's also repeated throughout the New Testament as well. In the book of Matthew, Jesus reaffirms the biblical standard for marriage.
Okay, so I'm going to make two very, very quick points. So the first, so if we look at the Old Testament in isolation, just to start off with, as an example. So let's look at Exodus 35:2, which suggests that if you work on the Sabbath, you should be put to death. If you look at Leviticus 11:7, it suggests that if you have pork, you should be put to death. Let me finish. If you plant two crops side by side, you should be stoned by your entire village.
God damn.
If you wear a suit, which you are wearing now, that contains two different fibers intertwined into the same jacket, you should be burned at the stake by your own mother. Now, following that rationale, in Leviticus 18:22, when it states that man shall not sleep with man, why aren't we burning ourselves at the stake as well?
Wow, public school twink, get him. Get him!
Why aren't we stoning ourselves to death?
Wait, what's Charlie's response? What's his response? When he's shut down, what's his fucking response do? Okay, full clip.
Jones from Emmanuel College.
Just give me the response. Fuck!
And maybe you can add what you said on your chair over there. Aren't you just defending a selective history listed? So I've learned that moral codes and social norms listed. So when you claim that modern conservative targets people who have always
a great power then.
Fair, that's not same sex, but fair. I see.
This reaffirms the biblical standard for the matter.
Fair. I see your point. But
there are moral truths that just reaffirms the.
As an example, if you plant two crops side by side, you should be in jacket. You should be burned at the stake by your own mother. Now, following that rationale, in Leviticus 18:22, when it states that man shall not sleep with man, why aren't we burning ourselves at the stake as well? Why aren't we stoning ourselves to death?
All right, what's he saying? What's he going to say?
Do you care to address my main contention that Christ affirmed biblical marriage in the book of Matthew? And can you tell me the difference between the ceremonial, the moral, and the ritual law? And then finally, also, tell me about Christianity, the difference between the new and the old covenant, or are you just going to cherry pick certain verses of ancient Israel that do not apply to new Christianity?
No, fair. I completely agree. So we'll look at 2 points then. So firstly, if we look at the Old Testament, we can see the kind of inconsistencies there. We've already touched upon that, right? That makes sense. Secondly, you mentioned the point of Jesus and Christ. He never mentioned anything to do with homosexuality at all.
Well, hold on a second. No, he affirmed biblical marriage as one man and one woman. He said a man shall leave his
Romans, right?
House.
In the New Testament.
No, in Matthew, that is not correct. I believe
in the New Testament.
In the New Testament, well, Romans is also in the New Testament. Secondly, in Romans 1, the Apostle Paul talks negatively about homosexuality. Explicitly. Also, homosexuality is repeated in the book of Titus and in the book of Jude as not being favorable as the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. Not even talking about the Old Testament verses. There are 3 types of the 613 Levitical laws, and you know, of course, in your own way, cherry pick some of them. We do not live under the ceremonial, we do not live under the ritual, but we do live under the moral. There's only 10 of the moral that we as Christians believe we're bound to. Some believe 9, which of course is the Decalogue. And so none of those that you mentioned we as Christians believe that we live under. However, we do look at what Christ articulated as the biblical standard of marriage.
So why do we need to not like homosexuality? So it's a choice then, right? It's not, if it's not one of the 10, it's a choice? Is that what he's saying? God, Christian debates are so fucking stupid.
And we can also look to church tradition for this as well. And the church has had a tradition for well over 2,000 years. Even myself as a Protestant acknowledges that tradition is marriage between one man and one woman.
An unfair point, but okay, say we put aside the Old Testament for now. We'll put that aside and the inconsistencies there, and we'll look purely at the New Testament following your rationale, okay? Now, when you say that Christ lays specifically, and the New Testament states specifically that man shall not sleep with man, I'd like to point out a linguistic error on that point.
I did not say that. I said the biblical marriage was affirmed, and then Romans 1 did talk negatively about the action of homosexuality.
But ultimately, that affirmation comes from 8 lines in there that suggest that man shall not sleep with man.
Yes, of course, yes. The Old Testament and New Testament harmonize one another, but Christ brought it to a different level, a different covenant, and a different moral teaching. It wasn't just enough to say that you shall, man shall strike eye for eye, it's that you shall turn the other cheek, that you shall love your enemy. Christ's moral standard was much more even elevated than that of the Israelites and the Hebrews.
Well, I'm going to ask you whose Bible, okay? Now, your Bible that you use currently is written in the English language, right? Correct?
Yeah, the King James Version, yes, thanks to Tyndale.
Yeah, well, exactly. It's written in the English language, which in itself is only, say, 500 years old. Now, but the Christianity in itself, say, is 2,000 years old or even older, yeah? Correct? Now, which means that the Bible was originally written not in English, but in ancient
Koine Greek.
Huh?
In Koine Greek.
Yeah, correct. Now, if we look at the Greek terminology of man...
Yes, and Jesus spoke Aramaic. You could translate things, you acknowledge that.
Well, we translate things, but translations are linguistically ambiguous. as a former classicist, I know that language can't be translated directly. So, for example, if we look at the translation of certain words into man, so I've got two words here. So I've got malakoi, which means essentially soft, which isn't necessarily directly saying a gay man. And then we've got, oh God, how do I say that? Arsenokoitai, which essentially means prostitutes. Now, if we look at things linguistically, we can pick apart the Bible and say that actually it wasn't saying man shall not sleep with man, it's saying man shall not sleep with prostitutes, which is an entirely different linguistic thing.
I'm not even getting into Leviticus, though.
But no,
my contention is completely New Testament focused.
This isn't Leviticus.
Well, but you said man shall not speak of the man. So you're talking about Romans.
Well, okay, these words are used throughout the
Right, well, actually, in Romans 1, it was actually women sleeping with women. So you got your verses wrong. In Romans 1, Paul is prophesying about the end of the world, and he's saying that in the end times, woman will like with woman like, and man will, I think it might say man will like, man like. You have to get the verses specifically. But it is agreed upon, and you can agree. This is why tradition is important, and I even say this as a...
This is a little bit interesting. Well, good luck, because I am bored to death. Fuck that. Okay. It's less impressive with the full context, I guess. Okay. The guy. Why are Charlie Kirk's words suddenly off limits? Oh, is this people getting fucked for posting compilations of shit that Charlie Kirk said? It might be, right? 1.6
he
billion
stood for.
views.
And
did I start watching this? 15 seconds.
We return to that hideous killing in America. Two things that we picked up on yesterday. I think one of these problems was solved. I began yesterday's program not really having a very clear idea of who Charlie Kirk was, or indeed what he stood for. And I ended it with a much clearer idea, which it is not quite as straightforward a process as you might think. I got a few messages yesterday complaining that we were playing out clips of what the chap actually said, the self-styled free speech champion. And then I bumped into Ian Dale yesterday evening, and he said, "Oh, you're getting a lot of flack on Twitter." And I said, "Well, what on earth have I done now?" And he said, "Oh, people think that you were wrong to play out clips of Charlie Kirk talking." I'm like, how can anybody be cross that you're playing out? I mean, what would he want in the aftermath of his appalling murder? Would he want his positions, his arguments, his messages to be more widely disseminated than ever before? Or would he want people to essentially censor him posthumously? How can it possibly be... I don't know. I gave up trying to work out what passes for the logic in the minds of these kind of people a long time ago. It's not true, is it? I'll never give up trying to work it out. But I gave up much hope that I would ever succeed. And the other bit that was missing from the analysis, from the entire story, was the definition of who they were. So Donald Trump moved immediately, as Donald Trump will always do, to turn this tragedy into whatever would be most to the benefit of Donald Trump. And so he elected to list attacks upon Republican politicians, refer to attacks upon Republican politicians, and completely ignore attacks upon Democrat politicians, many of which have been undertaken by people who were proven to be Donald Trump supporters or Donald Trump admirers, and talked about radical left rhetoric. I heard a lot of talk, I've seen a lot of talk about they. I'll play you a clip in a moment of a Fox News commentator saying they're at war with us.
Oh, yeah. Is this I can't remember which one it is, the slimy one, the smirky one. I can't remember his name.
Genuinely don't know who they are. And obviously there's a frisson of concern, not necessarily fear, that it just means anybody who keeps telling the truth about these people and this movement. Anybody who, for example, considers it absolutely unconscionable that you could pardon insurrectionists who attacked the Capitol and left left the police officers traumatized, terrified, and even dead. You know, I mean, is that what he means? What is the radical left rhetoric? So there were two things missing from our conversation yesterday. And I answered one of those questions. I now know what he stood for. I don't remove, and I appreciate some people have been less empathetic than me, if you like. But I don't resile a single scintilla of sympathy and horror at what happened to the guy. I used the word courageous yesterday to describe my reaction to the discovery that he always debated people I don't know that I would reuse that word today, because I've had a look at some of the clips, I've had a look at some of the debates, and I don't really know how courageous it was. I've also seen quite a lot of clips of him losing, but the criticisms he received. But I'll tell you why I say that.
It's still courageous if he loses. It's just that it was college students. That was kind of the thing.
Because I don't think I'm courageous. And what he did essentially was what I do from a very different political position and not on the radio. So if I get the better of somebody, there'll be a long queue of people claiming that I've been condescending or I've bullied them or you can't really edit things to make me look better than I actually am, because the whole flipping show is up on YouTube from beginning to end. But I don't want to be yin to his yang, and I'm obviously nowhere near as important on the political stage on either side of the Atlantic. But I don't know that it's courageous to say prove me wrong. I just used the word to describe him in contrast to a lot of people who seem to have similar politics and will never stand up and be counted. So in relative terms, he had more courage than Hank Buncher-Numbers with a bald eagle avatar who spends his life disseminating negativity and bigotry on social media. And I didn't like what I discovered about him. And the more I discovered about him during yesterday...
Yeah, I guess he didn't even know who Charlie Kirk was. I thought even a lot of normies who I know who Charlie Kirk was. They know him mostly because of Facebook. He appears on Facebook feeds. Even if you're not asking for it, even if you're left-wing, he'll appear on your Facebook feed. That's how people knew him. That I know anyway. But yeah, I guess James didn't.
Today's programme, the more troubled I was by the response, particularly of Boris Johnson, actually, who talked about all he ever did was say common sense things.
Oh, yeah.
And then you read some of the things that he'd actually said, you listened to some of the things that
common sense fentanyl overdose,
he actually said, and you wondered whether Boris Johnson, the nicest thing you could say about Boris Johnson was that he didn't know. He should have listened to yesterday's show, because he was responding. And that, of course, is when I realised why people would get so cross about anybody reading out what he'd said or playing out actual footage of him talking. Imagine that for a moment. Imagine casting yourself as a disciple of somebody you describe as a free speech champion, and then he tragically gets murdered by persons as yet unknown, which is an element of the conversation that we're moving towards. He tragically gets murdered, and all of the people who consider themselves to be disciples of a free speech champion have hissy fits and conniptions over the words that he spoke, over people playing the words that he spoke. I'm not often completely baffled by bigotry, but I've got to tell you, that one's got me right in the right in the confused zone of my brain. So you don't want me to find out what he stood for, even as I condemn his murder? Why don't you want me to find out why don't you want people to know what he stood for? Surely that's a grave disservice to his memory. You think he'd be ashamed of the things that he was recorded saying? You think he'd be ashamed of the positions he adopted? You think he'd be ashamed of the arguments that he made? Or are you ashamed of the fact that you agree with them and therefore you don't want anybody holding up the mirror? As usual, generally when I'm completely baffled by people, I realise it is what they see.
I haven't seen any of these compilations. Like, you can argue that maybe like some of them are out of context, like that blowout or whatever. Well, that blowout wasn't even Charlie talking, so I don't know. But I mean, what are you gonna do? That's just part of the discourse, right? That's just part of the discourse, especially if you're a debater. If you're like a Ben Shapiro or a Destiny or anyone, any debater, even good ones, yeah, there will be moments when you've put your foot in your mouth, and then people will just blast those if they oppose you. It's pretty normal. It's gonna happen when I die. People are gonna blast fucking clips of me at my bad moments. You know, it's just people getting fired for this or getting like fucking flack for it. Jeez.
In the mirror that's being held up that they're repelled by, rather than the person actually holding up the mirror. That just becomes a wonderful exercise in
There's a Charlie versus Straighter Aid clip going viral. I did not know she spoke to him.
Projection. So I'm categorically not praising the man, but I am discovering with every passing hour the reality of his opinions.
Oh, they
and
were
that
on whatever.
then
Yeah, that's
takes us
true. Yeah.
to the reaction. And I've seen actually one right-winger. I'm not familiar with him. I'm not that plugged into American politics. And I don't know whether he's ignorant of history or whether he's absolutely stupid. But I've seen one right-wing commentator this morning suggesting that this is like the Reichstag fire in Nazi Germany. The Reichstag fire, if you don't know, involved...
for those of you who don't know. Yes. Tell us. Listen, I forgot, okay? I spoke about the Reichstag fire last week, but I've forgotten. So go on, Dave. Go on, James. You got it. Wait, what's this? Before we learn about the Reichstag fire.
My wife does things with my child that I can't even...
Why is it like this? What the fuck?
Even dream of doing. My wife does things with my child that I can't even dream of doing, such as having an intuition, compassion, empathy. She can operate on 30 minutes of sleep. I need 8 hours, or else I'm like a
Don't underestimate yourself, Charlie.
Hold
I
on
think
a
you
second.
can
No,
definitely
hold on. No,
they're
women have a different giftedness, I believe, given by God, that is completely different than men. I never said smarter. In fact, a woman's intuition is far better than my intuition. I trust my wife's gut when it comes to people, when it comes to relationships, and she leans on me for, investments or politics. We are given different gifting. Now, with that being said, some women have a gifting in that direction. There is a general rule, and the general rule is that women are far more gifted at people and caretaking and the intimate.
Okay. Is that what you were trying to show me? Was that what you were referring to? That one going viral? Okay.
German Parliament building being set on fire by one individual who was a Dutch communist.
He was a narco-syndicalist, I believe, unaffiliated.
Hitler used it to claim that this was all part of a massive conspiracy by all the communists, because 1930s Germany could have gone either way. It could have gone far left or far right. And Hitler knew that. The biggest threat to him politically was probably from communists. And he therefore lied about it being a massive conspiracy of people, and that they had to round up all the communists. And once they started rounding up the communists and closing down democracy and co-opting the judiciary, you know what happened next. So I was a little surprised to see that point being made by somebody who would very much style themselves as on the same side of politics as Donald Trump or indeed Charlie Kirk. I didn't know Charlie Kirk was one of the people that lied about the 2020 election. So, again,
He bust people down, didn't he? He bust people to the Capitol, didn't he? Fuck.
I don't know what his position was on the insurrectionists, but pardoning people who've tried to overthrow democracy by using political violence is surely, under any analysis whatsoever, more of a catalyst for political violence than calling people names. And then I've also found myself in the last 24 hours reading people who used to claim that calling people names is just hurty words. Even Farage is in the Daily Mail today complaining about people being called names. And yet these are the guys who 10 minutes ago were telling us that our free speech was under that. I mean, I'm just really confused. Until you start wondering whether it is, as always, all about the race. As is often the way, the transgender people being used as camouflage in the first instance to go all in on the racism. Allowing public discourse to be vile again in the context of transgender people, you're never going to get that genie back in the bottle, and all of the people whose bigotries extend far beyond one issue have been filling their boots ever since. I want you to listen to something. First of all, I want you to listen to this. This is a political commentator from the Republican Party. I think he used to work for George Bush. Well, he definitely worked for one of the George Bushes. I just can't completely remember which one. This guy got sacked.
He's been one of the most divisive, especially divisive younger figures in this, who is constantly sort of pushing this sort of hate speech or sort of aimed at certain groups. And I always go back to hateful thoughts lead to hateful words, which then lead to hateful actions.
That is a guy called...
It's fucking meant. It's so cucked, man. Imagine firing someone for a statement like that. See, I thought when people were talking about people getting fired, I was like, oh, yeah, there are probably some idiots who are working in a public-facing job, and they're like, oh, rip bozo, champagne glasses. Okay, whatever. This is... What the fuck was that? What did I just listen to?
Matthew Dowd speaking on MSNBC. He got fired for those words shortly afterwards. This is a guy called Jesse Waters speaking on Fox News in more or less the same window of time, and both in response to this horrible murder.
Trump gets hit in the ear. Charlie gets shot dead. They came after Kavanaugh with a rifle to his neighborhood. They went after Musk's cars. They just shot 2 Jews outside the embassy. Think about it. Scalise got shot, barely survived. It's happening. You got trans shooters. You got riots in LA. They are at war with us. Whether we want to accept it or not, they are at war with us. And what are we going to do about it? How much political violence are we going to tolerate? And that's the question we're just going to have to ask ourselves. Now, Charlie would want us to put as much pressure on these people as possible. Dana nailed it. This is unacceptable and has to stop. And it has to stop now. And everybody's accountable. And we're watching what they're saying on television and who's saying what.
Dude, it's so bad, man. It's so... what's the difference between this and like 33 Nazi shit? Like, yeah, we're going to find you. We're watching you. We're going to make sure we're going to... And again, these guys they're already interpreting just like the most benign, slightly insensitive at worst comments as like declarations of war. Fucking hell.
But the politicians, the media...
Like, imagine the most fucking sensitive little bitch baby narcissist in the room has like guns and access to the military and can fire you. It's a really horrible fucking position to be in. It's like this guy, dude. It's not even like they're coming after people who are just celebrating. Remember, people think they're coming for just the far left. No, they're not. They are coming for anyone who they think is basically not towing the line. So it's like this. It's like, imagine this person in government with the cops and everything, and they think you've done something wrong.
Funny, it's funny. Gee, I wish I was big, just one of the big cops. Really funny. Really funny. It's funny, you know. It's a good story. It's funny. You're a funny guy. What do you mean? You mean the way I talk? What? It's just, you know, you're just funny. It's funny, you know, the way you tell the story and everything. Funny how? I mean, what's funny about it?
Tommy, no, you got it all wrong.
Oh, Anthony. He's a big boy. He knows what he said. What'd you say?
You're right.
Funny how? What?
Just, you know, you're funny.
You mean, let me understand this, because maybe it's me, I'm a little fucked up, maybe. But I'm funny how? I mean, funny like I'm a clown, I amuse you. I make you laugh. I'm here to fucking amuse you. What do you mean funny? Funny how? How am I funny?
Like, if you know the film, right? It's like, imagine this guy being in charge of the military and the police and having quite a stronghold over the media as well, or like being able to contact employers. Fuck that, man. Fuck that. Charlie Kirk, he wasn't the best debater, you know. Like, I mean, it's really hard. It's really tragic that he died. You know, just he's one of the very good debaters. Like, oh yeah, yeah. Well, was he? Why do you say he's a bad debater? Why'd you say that? He's dead. Why'd you say that?
And all of these rats out there. This can never happen again. It ends now. Greg's right again. This is a turning point, and we know which direction we're going.
He's still got a job. Yeah. And, you know, I share his condemnation of political violence, but who are they? Who is this homogenous group of people that are all responsible for the actions of those individuals? I mean, he did actually go further.
We're angry, and we're resolute. And we're going to avenge Charlie's death in the way Charlie would want it to be avenged.
Are you talking about avenging now? And how can you be opposed to political violence but supportive of a man who pardoned the January the 6th insurrectionists? You remember that footage? You saw it. You watched it. Donald Trump lost an election and his supporters attacked the Capitol. And
guided tour. But also, if it was an attack, it's because Trump didn't get the National Guard in because of Pelosi. But also... non-violent, they walked in peacefully and patriotically, but also was really violent, but only because of that one guy whose name I can't even fucking remember. Yeah, fuck's sake. What was the guy? The guy that they blame it all on? Oh, God. What was the guy? What was the guy's name? The apparent psyop that they're all Ray Epps, yeah.
The public servants working there and paid for the blood of the actual vice president. I still don't know enough about Charlie Kirk to know how he would feel about the coverage of his murder. But I mean, I'm certain that he wouldn't want people to be complaining about hearing his words. being repeated and disseminated. And I don't know. I mean, listen, if you're gonna, you talk about all of the people that Waters guy just talked about, and it's right to do so, but you then have to talk about Melissa Hortman and her husband, targeted in their homes, killed by a Trump supporter. That's a matter of record. The man charged with the attempted assassination of Pennsylvania's Democratic Governor Josh Shapiro in April, a Trump supporter. 4 Democratic elected officials targeted in New Mexico in 2022. The man who tried to kidnap the Democratic House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and actually assaulted her husband Paul. That's something that Donald Trump Jr. made jokes about. Imagine if someone was making jokes, someone in public life, a really senior Democrat, was making jokes about Charlie Kirk's murder now.
Yeah, well, Hassan Piker, he tweeted out the gun. Fuck's sake. That's like the same as the Democrats, right? And Democrats are just like, dude, you have to, please. Where is Elon Musk?
What do you think would happen to them? But Donald Trump's son made jokes about attempted kidnap and attack upon senior Democrats. Everybody who wanted to hang Mike Pence on January the 6th, 2021 was a Trump supporter. By definition, if you were there, you weren't just a Trump supporter, you were also spreading lies, buying lies, disseminating lies, or, to be generous, believing lies. And the list goes on. And the list should be married to the other list. They should all be on the same list. Gabby Giffords shot in the head, a Democrat. We speak about they. All of these Democrats, is there some unidentified homogenous group, the radical left? Who are you talking about? People who support political violence. There are 2 types of people. People who support political violence and people who don't. Actually, there are 3 types of people. There are people who undertake political violence.
Yeah, okay. Elaborating this little theory. Nice one.
Are the worst. All right? Then there are the people who support political violence, and they are the second worst. And then there are the people who abhor and condemn political violence, and they are all of us. Why is that suddenly complicated in the context of this story? Why is it suddenly tribal? Why is it political or footballified? Here are the people who undertake political violence, up to and including whoever turns out to have shot Charlie Kirk, and all of the people, for example, who attacked the Capitol in 2021. Here are the people who support political violence, whoever is doing it. And here are the people who don't. That's a scary division, right? That's a really scary division. Because you kind of end up being told, in this context, in this sort of crucible of very carefully cultivated hatred, that anybody who disagrees with you is responsible for the political violence enacted against the people who agree with you.
There's a thing about this as well that people don't seem to be noticing, is that, like, again, never forget just how fucking well-behaved Democrat politicians have been. Even, like, Democrat leading media, like, just how well-behaved they've been with condemning all this shit and never really... The worst thing that these people get is, like, yeah, like in 2021, I think Maxine Waters spoke about saying that people should protest past a curfew if the Derek Chauvin trial doesn't go the right, like shit like that, right? It's nothing. It's nothing. Nothing. Okay? They are so well behaved. People need to remember that there is some violence that is unconditional. There is some attacks that get made against certain groups that are unconditional. And when it comes to MAGA, pulling up random people on Twitter or social media commentators or anything like that, and then ascribing it to the entire Democratic Party whilst also pushing for violence against people they don't like themselves, it's unconditional. It's not just Democrats. Remember? Trump, and it's another statement I keep bringing going forward because no one on the right can contradict it, is the fact that Trump put a target, he put more targets on the backs of Republican figures, Republicans, in the 1 month build up to January 6th and on the day. That's just, Trump endangered more Republicans, not let alone Democrats. He endangered more Republicans with his rhetoric in the month building up to January 6th than any Democrat has in the last 10, 20 years. Because any time any Republican, whether they were pro-Trump or not, if they just defied him on 1 or 2 things, or just mainly one, the slate of electors, there would be Republicans at their doors with guns calling them fucking pedophiles and traitors. And remember what was said when Mike Pence refused to play ball on the day. When the riots were starting on the Capitol, Trump tweeted out that Pence had betrayed them. And when Trump was made aware that the crowd was chanting, "Hang Mike Pence," his response to the person who called him was, "Well, I think they just care more about voter fraud than you do." He didn't care. He didn't care that the crowd was calling to hang Mike Pence. And Mike Pence was lucky to escape. They got quite close to him. Let's find the Jan 6 committee. Who was the guy? It was isn't this the guy who...
Anybody who disagrees with you, it's a bit like what they tried to do with the ballot.
Trump sit for hours watching the rioting. He did. People, again, the January 6th stuff is... I need to revisit my notes on that because I took so many. People don't know how many people were trying to get Trump to call it off, because Trump put out a tweet that basically said stay peaceful when they were not staying peaceful already, when people were already violent. And everyone said, like, this is not a get out of jail free card. This is not doing enough. You need to do more. You need to give a televised statement. You need to specifically tell them to stop rioting, go home, etc. And Trump waited, for 3 hours and 17 minutes, I think it was. Yeah, it's a very specific time. He drank a Diet Coke, and he had so many Republicans coming to his office or calling him and telling him to stop. Marjorie Taylor Greene was one of the ones telling him to stop, to call the crowd off. His own daughter, Ivanka Trump, testified to trying to tell him to call things off. His Secretary of Defense, or people like, I think Mark Milley was involved. Like, there were so many people who were close to him. Trump Jr. tried to tell him to call things off, and he still wouldn't. Don Jr., yeah. 2 of his family members and Marjorie Taylor Greene were amongst it wasn't Democrats. Some of the worst things we know about January 6th and Trump's behavior building up to and including that event are from Republicans. It's from Republican testimony, because they were the ones that he was bullying for the entire time. The Raffensperger phone call and the amount of people who were targeting him afterwards because it got published, or the angry mob that showed up outside the house of Rusty Bowers 9 times in a row. Yeah, they were quite lucky that people didn't die. That QAnon shaman, remember him? He spent the whole month going to the state Congress to harass people with a crowd. Where was it? Hang Mike Pence. Hang not Pike Mence. Jesus Christ. He's here, I think. This is him tweeting about him not having the courage to do what should be done. When is he made aware of the chant? It's around here somewhere. Do the right thing. Hang Mike Pence. Not Eastman. What was it? Something about them being more angry about the voter fraud. Eastman, people telling him to get a lawyer. Is it here? Mike Pence, Senate floor. Crypt, do the right thing. Was it something Secretary of Defense?
Hey.
Hello?
It was when Kevin McCarthy called him.
It was McCarthy. Yeah. It was this. This was after he had been told about the Hang Mike Pence chants. Mm-hmm. Maybe these people are just more angry about this than you are. Yep. That was it.
Yep.
That's crazy.
And just a reminder, it was not just Mike Pence in that building. It was also Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Grassley. So it was everyone. It was like the first 3 people in the line of succession for the presidency. So.
Kind of fucked.
All right. Kind of fucked.
Oh, there's more here. Yeah. Evidence developed in the committee's investigation showed that the president, when told that the crowd was chanting "Hang Mike Pence," responded that perhaps the vice president deserved to be hanged. And President Trump rebuffed pleas from Leader McCarthy to ask that his supporters leave the Capitol building, stating, "Well, Kevin, I guess these people are more upset about the election than you are." 642, that footnote. That's from the executive summary. Even if you just read the executive summary of this, the whole thing is, I think I read all of it apart from one chapter. Is it footnote 648? And I think that would be testimony from the guy from McCarthy. Yeah. Oh, Cassidy Hutchinson, bro.
Palestinian peace marches. If you're protesting, if you're demonstrating solidarity with innocent people being killed in Gaza, then you must support Hamas. If you disagree with Donald Trump, then you must support the people who tried to kill him. If you disagree with some of the racist conspiracy theories that Charlie Kirk adhered to, notably the Great Replacement theory, if you disagree with that, then you must somehow endorse his murder. I mean, is that what they're saying? Is that what it is? Is it actually a lot simpler than it originally looks? It's all about controlling the narrative, and the narrative is that everybody who disagrees with us, just as we saw with the Reichstag fire, everybody who disagrees with us deserves the violence that we are pretending to condemn and abhor.